I'm starting a new hashtag. Hashtag set Teresa free. Set this lady free, please. What's up, y'all? It's your girl Roxy with Roxy Says, and we're gonna talk about it. If this is your first time here, welcome. And if you are returning, welcome back. Today we are discussing the Golden Bachelor episode 8, where Gary takes the ladies to Costa Rica. And I have some concerns, so let's get right into it. But before we do, please don't forget to hit like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you hit that notification bell so that you know every time I upload a new video. All right, y'all. So we only have 1 week until the engagements, okay? And Gary feels very confident that he has found the second love of his life within one of these ladies. So as a lot of y'all know, this is my first time watching The Bachelor, and apparently this week is very important because this is the week where they get to have overnight dates in the fantasy suite. We see Gary sit down for a little chat with Jesse, and he's describing the things that he loves the most about each of the women, Teresa and Leslie. He does say that Leslie is authentic and she's really playful, and he's truly in love with her. And as far as Teresa, Gary says that he feels warm and safe with her. And he also says that they've both connected on the loss of their loved ones. Now remember, both Teresa and Gary were married to their high school sweethearts for 40 plus years before losing them. And we're gonna get into that more a little bit later because I feel like that is the main thing that Gary keeps bringing up when he speaks about his connection to Teresa. But yeah, we're gonna chat about that later. Gary also admits that he's been holding back from telling Teresa that he loves her. Now remember, I touched on that in my last review. He was able to tell Faith, I love you. He was able to tell Leslie, I love you. But he still hasn't told Teresa, I love you. Why not? And if you knew for sure that you loved Faith, but you don't know for sure if you love Teresa, then why did you send Faith? Okay, but we're going to get into that more later too, okay? But Gary says that when he does tell Teresa, I love you, he wants to make sure that it's the right moment and that it's the perfect time. And I'm like, I don't understand that because like I said before, when it came to the other women in Gary's confessional, he said he couldn't help himself but to tell them that he loved them in that moment because the feeling was so strong within him. He just had to say it. But with Teresa, it has to be the right time and the right moment. What? And I feel like that can be taken in two ways. On one hand, someone can say, oh, okay, that means that this I love you to Teresa means so much to him that he wants it to be super perfect. And on the other hand, which is the hand that I'm on, I feel like Gary is actually trying to work himself up or build himself up to be able to say I love you to Teresa because he just doesn't love her yet. And I feel like he's trying to convince himself that he loves her. Remember, he says that Teresa is the safe option. And I do feel that Gary sees Teresa as a safe option for reasons that I said previously. She's just going to be there. She's very agreeable. Okay. She's going to say yes to everything that he requests of her. So yeah, she's the safe option in that sense, but I don't feel like he feels a spark with her. So now we see Gary and Jesse start discussing intimacy. Okay. And Gary says, listen, I'm going to read the room. I'm going to follow her lead. Okay. It's not like a pressing matter, but if she throwing it at me, oh, I'm gonna catch it. Okay. Let's be clear. Gary is not afraid of being intimate. Okay. He's like, look, if they want me to give it to them, I'm gonna give it to them. Okay. Period, Gary. Period. And Gary also said he has to take the opportunity because he doesn't know if this will be the last time that he has that opportunity. That had me cracking up. So we see that Gary will be spending the first date with Leslie. And like someone commented in my previous video, are these women trying to break Gary's back? Every time they see him, they are running up to him and jumping in his arms. But clearly they're both very excited to see each other. And to Leslie's surprise, she learns that on this date, they will be rappelling 170 feet down into a waterfall. So Leslie is very nervous about this because this is something that she has never done. And she is also extremely afraid of heights. And I'm just sitting there like, who picked this date? Did y'all even ask Leslie if she had a preference of what she would like to do? Because later we're going to see that him and Teresa do something on the ground. They do something on the ground. And I'm like, why didn't y'all give Leslie that option knowing that she was afraid of heights? Okay. Y'all set Leslie up with this date. So anyways, they're making their way down. It's really slippery on Leslie's side because the water is falling on her, and Gary goes in for a kiss while they're making their way down. I'm sorry. If I was Leslie, I'd be like, hold on, you're going to have to wait until I am on solid ground before you trying to make out. I'm all wet, slipping and sliding, you trying to kiss and you dry. Like, you're going to have to wait for this kiss. I can't do this right now. I got to concentrate to make sure I don't break my damn neck. But as they're going down, Gary is very encouraging. He's telling her, oh, I'm so proud of you. You're doing such a great job. This is amazing. You know, all those sweet things that Gary always says. So ultimately, they make it down safely. They make out some more. And in Gary's confessional, he says that tonight is the night that will really solidify his choice between Teresa and Leslie. So now it's time for their romantic dinner date. And in Gary's confessional, he admits that both him and Leslie have rose-colored glasses on. So he wants to ask the really tough questions. He wants to have the really deep conversations. And he wants to make sure that Leslie knows, look, at the end of this, the goal is for us to be married. This is a lifelong commitment, and it's very important to him that he knows that she understands that. So when they sit down for dinner, Gary tells Leslie that he's noticed that she hasn't asked him the tough questions yet, and he wants to know why is that? And Leslie says, oh, you want a tough question? Okay, when's the last time you had sex? And Gary is a bit taken aback by that question, okay? He almost chokes. He almost choked on whatever he was drinking or eating. And she says, well, you said you want some tough questions. Okay. And Gary says that he needs some clarification. He says, are you talking about with myself or with someone else? I said, hey, Gary. I know that's right. Gary said I could do it by myself. Okay, period. But his response to the question is that it's been a long time. And Leslie says that it's been about a year for her. Now listen, Leslie is nice because I'm sorry, I would need specifics to the answer to that question, because a long time is subjective. To some people, a long time could be 5 years. To some people, it could be 2 years. To others, a long time could be 2 weeks. I need you to be specific. The same way that Leslie said it's been about a year. And of course, people can lie. Okay, people can lie. We know this. But Leslie was specific with Gary. She should have made sure that he gave her a specific answer as well, okay? And of course, maybe they did have a longer conversation about this, but it was edited out because, as we all know, these shows are what? Edited and produced. I just had to say that because for some reason, some people think that they're the only ones who know that these shows are edited and produced, and the rest of us are just idiots. I don't know. So yes, we know the show is edited and produced. So maybe they did have a longer conversation. Maybe he did give more specifics about what he's been doing in the past couple of years, but all we can go by is what we saw on the screen. And he was very vague with his answer to that question. So Gary says, okay, let me ask you a more practical question. How will this living arrangement be should we end up together? Because we know that they live in two completely different states. Leslie says that she does not want to leave Minneapolis permanently because her kids are there. Her grandkids are there, right? And that's definitely understandable. But she says that she is open and willing to working something out with Gary so that they can both see each other. And in all of the episodes where I've seen Gary discuss, living arrangements, even when he did with Faith, I hear what the women are willing to do and not willing to do, but we don't hear what Gary is willing to do or not willing to do, right? We haven't really heard Gary say, yeah, I'll come visit you, or yes, I'm willing to move, right? Or no, I'm not willing to move. What is Gary's answer to that question? How willing is he to uproot his life for one of these women should he choose them? But Gary says that he does appreciate that Leslie is willing to work something out with him in terms of how their living arrangements would be should they end up together. And he lets her know that if they do end up together, this will be a matter of till death do us part. And of course, Leslie gets very emotional about that because she says even though she's been married twice, remember Leslie did tell us that she had 2 marriages in the past, each lasting for 7 years. But even though she was married, she never felt like she was in a till death do us part type situation. And Gary has experienced that, of course, because he lost his wife, Toni. And Leslie says that that is something that she wants to experience with Gary. Now, in Leslie's confessional, I don't know if she know, but she did spill some of her own tea. She says that what she usually does is self-sabotage. And her saying that made me think, I wonder what happened in her previous marriages. I'm just curious as to what happened there because remember, Leslie did say that she dated Prince, okay? Now I'm just speculating, I wasn't there, but I would assume that if Leslie was running around with Prince, Leslie had a time in her day, okay? Leslie has lived, and I feel like she's had a very go with the flow, fun, free-spirited life. So it makes me wonder how she is in a committed relationship. I wonder if maybe being in a relationship made her feel controlled or tied down or less free. Again, I don't know Leslie from anywhere, okay? But that is something that came to mind when she brought up the self-sabotage comment. Tell me what you think below. So at the end of the dinner, Gary hands Leslie the fantasy suite invitation. And of course, Leslie accepts the invitation. Bachelor fans, let me know, is it common for people to always accept the invitation? Have people declined the invitation? And more importantly, have people accepted the invitation, slept with one person one night, and then the next night slept with someone else? Is that what they do like normally? Let me know below because I am curious. I am curious. So they get in the bed and they're talking and they're making out. And Gary tells Leslie about something that someone said to him about not looking for the one who you can live with, but looking for the one who you can't live without. And Gary tells Leslie that he thinks that she's the one. And I'm like, aw, isn't that sweet? So the things that Teresa has been saying to Gary,
oh, I can't live without you, I can't live without you,
Gary is telling to Leslie. And at this point in the episode, I said, look, if Gary picks Teresa, if Gary picks Teresa at the end of this, I'm gonna have an attitude, okay? Because the way that Gary is laying it on so thick with Leslie, if he turns around and picks Teresa, this whole show is a joke. This whole thing is a joke because what? Anyways, so Gary also says that even though the living situation with them is not concrete, Leslie is the one who he'd want to figure all of this out with. And then they start kissing again. And I'm sorry, but I noticed that Gary's eyes were open. I hate that. I feel like when people are really into a kiss, the eyes are closed, baby. Okay, closed all the way. I hate to see people kiss with their eyes open. It's a pet peeve of mine. I hate it. And we see them share a cute moment where Gary asks Leslie what temperature she likes the thermostat to be set to. And Leslie says 69. And I said, I know that's right. I know that's right, Leslie. So we see them the next morning. They're in bed and they're discussing what happened last night. So they say that they stayed up till 3 a.m. having those real deep conversations that Gary was looking for. And Gary says that he is fully aware that our nosy asses are going to want to know everything that happened last night. And to that, all he has to say is this.
I feel like it's none of their business.
I said, damn, Gary, sorry. We just want to know what happened. I want to know, okay? But he is 100% right. It is none of our business. So it is what it is. He not kissing and telling, and we just gonna have to leave it up to our own imagination. But in all honesty, to me, the body language wasn't giving like, oh, we just, like the body language wasn't giving that. Maybe they're just being coy. But even in real life, I think you can see two people together and you be like, I know they be doing nasty stuff. I didn't get that from Gary and Leslie. So I wouldn't be shocked to find out that they didn't do anything at all, that they really just stayed up till 3 a.m. talking. And if that's what they did, good for them. So now it's time to say goodbye. And they do have kind of an awkward moment because I feel like Leslie was going in for a kiss and Gary was going in for a hug. But of course, Leslie is very sad because she knows that when Gary leaves her, he's going off to see Teresa. But she says that all she can do is just be confident in the bond that they have built thus far. So in the next scene, we see Teresa, another one. She running up and jumping on Gary. Is production telling y'all to jump on Gary like this? My back is hurting just watching these ladies jump on him over and over. And I might be nitpicking a little bit, okay? But if you remember when Leslie and Gary met up for their date, Gary immediately complimented Leslie.
You look awesome.
So do you in blue.
But on this date, Teresa complimented Gary and then he complimented her.
You look amazing.
Well, thanks. You do too.
I don't know, y'all. I don't know. In Teresa's confessional, we see her say that she would just love if on this date, Gary finally tells her that he loves her. And I hate this for Teresa because we've seen him tell other women that he's loved them with no problem, right? But then I guess, what does Gary's I love you mean if he can tell you I love you and then still send you home, right? So I guess his I love yous don't mean that much. But I wonder how Teresa's family feels watching this back, seeing Teresa just hang on with hopes of this I love you. Meanwhile, Gary has been throwing I love yous out to other people, right? Because if I was Teresa's daughter, I would feel some type of way. Like, why are you playing with my mom's heart, sir? Anyway, so for their date, they go horseback riding. And this is supposed to be like a really romantic date. However, Teresa can clearly see that Gary's mood is off. He's very quiet. He's not really speaking to her. And in Gary's confessional, he says that this date is going to be in constant comparison of how his date went with Leslie. And he's going to be measuring everything based on his date with Leslie. He's going to try to do a good job of compartmentalizing everything, but he admits that it's going to be quite difficult for him. So when they finally get off the horses and have a seat, Teresa does let him know that she feels the distance during this date. And she tells him that she understands that he has a huge decision to make. She wouldn't even want to be in his shoes, but she reminds him how much he means to her, that she doesn't want to be without him, how much it means to her that he's met her family and that she loves him. And to that, Gary is just like, and I'm like, so you still can't say it back? Set this woman free. Set this woman free. Set Teresa free. Because at this point, I feel like you're just wasting her time. In my opinion, if Gary picks Teresa, it will be for practical reasons. It'll be because she doesn't live as far away from him as Leslie does. It'll be because she has a great job, which we'll discuss later. It'll be because she worships the ground that he walks on. But I don't think it'll be because he has this burning love and desire for Teresa. I just don't see it. And I'm not saying that Teresa's a bad person or she's not worthy of love, but I'm saying I don't think that if Jerry really loves this woman, that it should be such a struggle for him to verbalize it. Like, what's the issue? What's the problem? And there's also a clip of an interview that I saw that Susan did, and she didn't say Teresa's name, but I think that she was talking about Teresa. Take a listen.
As I take it all in, I think us big personality people are not for Gary. I think he needs somebody that just Google eyes and admires him and lets him be him, and they're all along for the ride. So you get me?
Yeah. And I 100% agree with that. I feel like Gary needs someone who will just be like, yes, yes, yes. Oh, I'd love to do that. And I feel like that's why Gary would pick her, but it won't be because he's just madly in love with this lady. And to make it worse, as Teresa is going on and on about how much she loves Gary, in Gary's confessional, he's saying all he can do in this moment is think about what Leslie is doing. Set Teresa free so she could get her groove back with one of these men on the island. Why are you doing this to her? So now it's time for dinner, and Gary says in his confessional that he did a horrible job at compartmentalizing his date with Teresa today because all he could think about was Leslie. And he worries if him and Teresa's relationship has maxed out at this point because he feels like despite their similarities, their relationship isn't progressing. So he's hoping that at tonight's dinner, something sparks and he finds out maybe he's missed something and that they're able to bond on a deeper level. So Gary asked Teresa about her occupation. And what's interesting is in one of my last videos, someone commented and they said that Teresa is sitting on a whole lot of money. And earlier, before I watched the episode, I was trying to see if I can find that information in an interview or somewhere, but I couldn't find it. But after watching this episode, I was like, oh, maybe she is. So for Teresa's occupation, she says that she's a day trader. She's been in the industry for a number of years. She beat out a bunch of new college graduates to get in her initial position, and she has excelled in her career since then. And I love that for Teresa. It's so boss, and I love that for her, okay? But she does say that if the right man was to come along, she would quit her job. And I'm like, Teresa, girl, don't quit your job over no man. Quit your job when you're ready to quit your job because it's what you want to do, okay? Don't quit your job for no man.
Anyways,
she does say that she hasn't been with anyone since her husband, and she feels like the reason why she hasn't gotten into any serious relationship is because she was being saved for Gary and for this experience because it is fate that her and Gary have ended up together. And I'm like, I don't know, sis, maybe. And Gary asks Teresa if she ever speaks to her late husband about it. And he does let her know that from time to time, he'll speak to Tony about it and he'll ask her opinion about certain things. And Teresa says, yes, she definitely does that as well. And I remember in my first review when Gary and Teresa went on that date at the diner, how cute it was. And I really liked the fact that they were able to bond over the loss of their significant others. But now I feel like that is the only thing that Gary brings up when he's discussing what him and Teresa have in common. And it's giving trauma bond. Of course, they're able to find comfort in each other, right? Because they've both experienced almost the same thing. They were with their spouses for 40 plus years. They were both with their high school sweetheart. But I feel like when Gary speaks on what draws him to Teresa, it should be more than the fact that they both lost someone. You get what I'm saying? Okay. Anyway, so of course, Teresa accepts Gary's invitation to go with him to the fantasy suite for the night. So apparently they had a great night. They're in bed, they're drinking coffee, and they're all smiles in the morning. Gary says that him and Teresa were able to have those deep conversations that he was looking for, and that all of the trepidations that he had about Teresa are now gone. And in Gary's confessional, he also says that waking up to Teresa this morning feels like the first day of the rest of his life. Aww. And let me tell y'all, in this next moment, I cussed, okay? Yeah, because I was irritated with Gary. You mean to tell me that y'all are laying in bed, y'all drinking y'all little coffee, y'all are discussing what an amazing night you had, and Teresa looks up at you and she says, I love you. And you say,
you know how I feel about you.
Mother... I'm starting a new hashtag. Hashtag set Teresa free. Set this lady free, please. And then in his confessional, Gary says that he told Teresa that he loved her last night. And it'll be like this nice private moment that they get to share. What is that about? Why does it have to be the perfect sunrise or the perfect moon for you to be able to tell Teresa that you love her? Why are you able to easily tell other women that you love them in the daytime, but you can only save your I love yous for Teresa at night when no one can see? I don't like that. I'm sorry. I don't like it. I don't like that at all. And in all honesty, had Teresa not corroborated that Gary did in fact say I love you the night before, I wouldn't have believed it. Because remember, he said it in a confessional. These confessionals are filmed way later. They could throw stuff in there. We all know how that goes. Even when Teresa and Gary are saying goodbye and Teresa says, I love you, he doesn't say it back. What's going on? Now, of course, it can be a possibility that this is just the way that production wants to frame this narrative so that, in fact, when Gary does pick Teresa at the end, we're all shocked and appalled. And maybe he's saying, I love you, and they're just editing it all out. But I honestly feel like he's not saying it. I honestly feel like he's just not saying it because that's just not the way he feels, okay? And what I want for Teresa is for her to stop saying it to him. But of course, this is a different situation. This is a competition. She wants to make sure that she's putting herself out there fully so that Gary can have no doubts about how she feels about him so that she could get picked and win in the end. So I guess, child, but that, I don't like it. I don't like it, okay? And in my last review, remember I mentioned a clip that they played that previewed the following episode. They showed a clip of Gary saying, I love you. So maybe we'll see him say it in the next episode. I don't know. It's just... And like I said before, Gary's I love yous don't really mean much, okay? Because like we saw, he told Faith that he loves her and he sent her ass home, okay? But I just hate to see women putting themselves out there like that for someone and it's not returned. I just don't like it. And on top of that, I think production, y'all playing games. What's that about? So we see Gary comparing both of the ladies in his head. He says that he's in love with both of them and he can definitely see a future with both of them. He describes Leslie as fun and exciting, and he knows that they can have a lot of adventures together and that they always look out for each other. As far as Teresa, Gary says that the two of them share a strong bond and they both know what the other has been through. Yeah, a trauma bond, okay? And you mean to tell me after that long night where you said that you guys had so much conversation and you got so many other questions answered, the main thing that you are still connecting on is this trauma bond? Okay, child. So we see clips of the upcoming episode where Gary will be proposing to the lady that he loves, okay? It's going to be super dramatic. We see that Gary's children are coming and they're going to be speaking to the ladies as well. We see Gary questioning if he's made a huge mistake, feeling horrible about hurting someone. And based on this episode and Gary's previous decisions, I have no idea who he's going to pick. I can see him picking both Leslie and Teresa for very different reasons, like I stated before. I feel like one will be out of love and one will be out of convenience and practicality and trauma bonding. And don't get it twisted. I fully understand that it takes more for a marriage to survive than just love. Okay, trust me, I understand that. But I really don't even think that Gary loves Teresa. I really don't think so. I feel like this trip, he's been trying to convince himself that he does, and he just doesn't. And that's why he can't bring himself to say it right back to her as easily as he can with the other ladies. And low key, Teresa kind of gives me the vibes of Karen in this video. Make sure that you check it out right after this one. But let me know your thoughts below for this episode. As always, don't forget to hit like, comment, and subscribe. I appreciate each and every one of you for sticking with me till the end. And I'll see y'all in my next video. Bye.